The frost came early that year on the frozen world of Seven. This was a planet where dragons had lived for thousands and thousands of years. The mountains here were always covered in ice. The valleys were always filled with snow, and the wind never stopped crying across the empty white lands. The pack lived in the biggest mountain. There were 17 adult dragons in the pack. They were beautiful creatures with scales that shined like moonlight on water. Their eyes glowed like blue fire. Their wings could block out the sun when they flew together. They had claws that could cut through stone and teeth that could crush metal. But tonight none of that mattered. Tonight all 17 dragons sat in their ancient cave and cried. The crying of dragons is not like the crying of other creatures. When dragons cry, the sound travels for hundreds of miles. It echoes off mountains. It shakes the ice. It makes the very air feel heavy with sadness. This sound had a name. It was called the grief song. Grandmother Bora was the oldest dragon in the pack. She had lived for 400 years. Her scales were not shiny anymore. They were dull and covered with old scars from battles she had fought long ago, but her eyes were still sharp. And right now, those sharp eyes were filled with tears. She pressed her face against the cold stone floor of the cave. This was the place where the eggs had been. 12 eggs, 12 bobbies waiting to be born, 12 new lives that would have made the pack strong again. But the eggs were gone. They had been stolen. The raiders had come 3 nights ago. They came in ships made of black metal. The ships were fast and quiet. They came down from the sky while most of the pack was sleeping. By the time the dragons woke up and started fighting, it was already too late. The raiders were called They were ugly creatures with hard shells like insects. They had too many arms and eyes that saw in every direction. They did not come to Seven to fight dragons. They came to steal eggs. Dragon eggs were worth more money than most people could imagine. The shells were harder than diamond. Rich people across the galaxy paid huge amounts to own things made from dragon eggshells. They made jewelry. They made decorations. They made stupid little toys for their stupid little children. And they did not care that inside each egg was a baby dragon waiting to be born. Was the strongest hunter in the pack. His scales were black like the night sky without stars. He had burn marks on his body from the fight with the plasma weapons had hit him again and again, but he had kept fighting. He had killed 7 of the raiders before they escaped. But killing 7 was not enough. The ship had gotten away. The eggs had gotten away. We followed them, said. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. We flew as high as we could. We saw where they went. The other dragons looked at him. Hope flickered in their eyes for just a moment. They went to a station in space, continued. It floats above our world. It has shields around it, weapons on every side. We tried to get close, but he lowered his great head in shame. We could not break through. Our fire did nothing. Our claws could not reach. The hope died as quickly as it had come. Was the alpha of the pack. She was not the biggest dragon. She was not the oldest, but she was and she was the bravest. Her scales were silver like clean ice. When she spoke, everyone listened. I contacted the Galactic Council, said. Her voice was calm, but there was pain hiding underneath. I told them what happened. I asked for help. What did they say? Asked one of the younger hunters. She was small for a dragon, with scales the color of dark blue water. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she said the words that broke everyone's heart. They said no. The cave filled with angry growls. Dragons snapped their teeth and scratched the floor with their claws. Why? Bora demanded. Why will they not help? Because of the law, answered bitterly. Under galactic law, dragon eggs are not considered people. They are considered things, cargo. They can say they are just moving livestock, moving animals. There is no crime in stealing animals. We are not animals, roared. He was young and hot-headed with scales that were bright orange like fire. Our children are not things. I know, said softly, But the galaxy does not know, the galaxy does not care. That night the temperature outside dropped to 80 degrees below zero, cold enough to freeze blood in seconds, cold enough to kill almost any living thing, but the dragons barely felt it. Their grief was colder than any ice. They sang the grief song all through the night. 17 voices joined together in a sound that had no words. It was just pure sadness, pure loss, pure pain. The song floated out of the cave and across the frozen mountains. It traveled over the glaciers and through the valleys. It rose up toward the dark sky filled with cold, uncaring stars. The dragons thought no one was listening. They thought their song would disappear into the empty night like all sad songs eventually do. But somewhere out there, someone was listening. Somewhere out there, a small ship was moving through the darkness between stars. And inside that ship, a single figure sat up straight as strange sounds came through his sensors. The figure was small, much smaller than a dragon. He had no scales, no claws, no wings. He had soft skin and dark hair and 2 eyes that had seen many terrible things in the galaxy. His name was, he was human. And when he heard the grief song and understood what it meant, he changed his course and flew toward the frozen world. Because humans had a rule. It was not written in any law book. It was not part of any galactic treaty, but every human knew it deep in their bones. You do not hurt children. And if someone does, you make them pay. 3 days passed after the eggs were stolen. 3 days of crying, 3 days of anger, 3 days of feeling completely helpless. The dragons took turns keeping watch at the entrance of their cave. They no longer expected to get their eggs back, but they were afraid they might return to steal more, to steal them. Dragon scales and dragon bones were worth money too. On the 3rd night was on watch duty. The blizzard outside was terrible. Wind screamed across the ice at 200 miles per hour. Snow fell so thick that even dragon eyes could not see very far. The temperature had dropped even lower than before. Then an alarm started making noise. The alarm was old, very old. Some space traders had installed it many decades ago, back when they used to visit 7. The traders were long gone now. They had decided the planet was too cold and too dangerous, but they had left the alarm behind. The alarm meant something was approaching. Roared to wake the others. Within moments he was joined by the 3 hunters launched themselves into the storm, their powerful wings fighting against the wind. "What is it?" shouted over the screaming blizzard. "More." "I do not know," shouted back, "but we will find out." They flew toward the signal. The cold bit at their scales. Ice formed on their wings. Even for dragons, this storm was dangerous. They could not stay out here for long. Then spotted something below, there on the ground. They dove down through the swirling snow, and what they saw made no sense at all. A single figure was walking across the ice, just walking, slowly and steadily like it was taking a nice stroll through a garden, not running, not hiding, not riding in any vehicle or wearing any special suit. The figure was small, very small compared to the dragons. It walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms. It wore a thick coat and heavy boots and some kind of eye protection. That was all, just normal clothes. "What creature is this?" asked. "How is it alive? It should be frozen solid." Studied the figure with his ancient eyes. Something stirred in his memory. A long time ago, maybe 50 years past, a ship had crashed on 7, had been curious and had gone to look. He had found creatures inside. Strange creatures that smiled too much and talked too fast and did not seem afraid of anything. "It is a human," said slowly. "I have seen them before. They are strange." "Strange how?" demanded. "Just strange." The 3 dragons landed in front of the walking figure. They spread their wings wide. They showed their teeth. They made themselves look as big and scary as possible. Any normal creature would run away. Any normal creature would scream in fear. Any normal creature would drop to the ground and beg for mercy. The human stopped walking. He looked up at the three massive dragons towering over him. Snow and ice swirled around his small body. The cold should have been killing him. He raised one hand and waved. "Hey," he called out. His voice somehow cut right through the screaming wind. "You the pack, I got your distress signal." The dragons looked at each other in confusion. "We sent no signal," growled. His voice was full of suspicion. "Yeah, you did." The human pulled down his eye protection. Underneath were two dark eyes that held no fear at all. "The grief song. I picked it up on my long-range sensors about 2 days ago, ran it through my translation programs." "You understood our song?" asked. She was surprised. The grief song had no words. It was just feeling, just emotion. "Enough of it," the human said. He shrugged like this was nothing special. "I understood that you lost something, something important, something small." He paused. "Children, you lost your children." The three dragons were quiet. The wind howled around them. Snow piled on their wings. The human continued. "I find things that were stolen, I bring them back. I heard you lost some eggs." "How do you know about the eggs?" demanded. "I know lots of things." Started walking again, moving past the dragons like they were not even there. "I know a raiding ship passed through this system 3 days ago. I know there's a station in orbit above this planet. I know that station is holding cargo that's going to be sold at auction in about 2 weeks." He stopped and looked back at the dragons. "And I know 12 dragon eggs are part of that cargo." Hope sparked in the hunters' chests. They had felt no hope for 3 days. They had forgotten what it felt like. "You know where our eggs are?" asked eagerly. "I do." "Can you get them back?" Smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that promised bad things for someone. "That's why I'm here." "Why?" asked. He did not trust easily. "Why would a human care about dragon eggs? We have nothing to offer you. We have no money, no treasures." Was quiet for a moment. The storm raged around him. Ice formed on his coat and his hair. He did not shiver. He did not shake. He just stood there in the deadly cold like it was nothing. "I don't want money," he said finally. "I don't want treasure." He started walking toward the mountain again. "I want something else." "What?" Did not answer right away. He just kept walking through the snow that should have killed him, through the cold that should have frozen his blood, through the storm that should have torn him apart. Finally, without turning around, he spoke again. "I want the people who hurt your children to wish they had never been born." The three dragons looked at each other. Then they followed the small human toward their cave. They did not know if they could trust him. They did not know if he could really help. But for the first time in 3 days, they felt something other than sadness. They felt hope. Inside the cave, all 17 dragons gathered in a circle. In the middle of that circle sat one small human. He looked like a piece of meat surrounded by hungry predators. Any other creature would be terrified. Sat cross-legged on the cold stone floor. He looked completely relaxed. He even yawned once. "Are you not cold?" Grandmother Bora asked. Even inside the cave, the temperature was far below freezing. "A little," admitted, "but I've been in worse. Earth, my home planet, has some pretty cold places too. I once spent 2 weeks in a place called Siberia tracking down a kidnapper. This isn't so bad." The dragons did not know what Siberia was, but they were starting to understand that humans were not like other creatures. Alpha stepped forward. Her silver scales caught the dim light of the glowing crystals that lined the cave walls. Her blue eyes studied the human carefully. "The station is a fortress," she said. "It has shields that can stop our fire. It has weapons that hurt us from far away. Our best warriors tried to attack it. They failed." She paused. "What makes you think you can do better?" Reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and suddenly a picture made of light appeared in the air. It showed the station floating in space. The station was huge and ugly, covered with guns and armor. "I'm not going to attack," it said. "I'm going to walk in." "Impossible," Bora snorted. Smoke came from her nostrils. "Their security will stop you before you get close." "No, it won't," smiled that dangerous smile again. "Because their security is designed to stop threats they understand. They have defenses against dragons, against galactic military ships, against pirates and raiders." He stood up and walked around the circle, looking each dragon in the eye. "But humans, we're not in their threat lists. We're classified as a primitive species. The galaxy thinks we're barely smart enough to count to 10. Most alien species believe humans are harmless, weak, stupid." "Are you not?" asked. He was not trying to be mean. He was genuinely curious. Laughed. It was a short, harsh sound. "That's what we want them to think." He continued, walking around the circle. "Humans have only been traveling in space for about 200 years. That's nothing. Some of your people are older than human space travel. We're new. We're small. We don't have a big empire. We don't have a powerful military. We don't make demands or start wars." He stopped in front of. "And because of all that, nobody takes us seriously. Nobody watches us. Nobody considers us a threat." His eyes glittered in the crystal light. "And that is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, to be underestimated." Thought about this. It made a strange kind of sense. "But even if you get inside," she said, "how will you find the eggs? How will you get them out? They have many guards, many weapons." "I'll figure it out." Said this like it was obvious, like breaking into a fortress full of armed aliens was just a small problem. "You will figure it out," repeated. He sounded doubtful. "That is your plan, to figure it out?" "Pretty much, yeah." The dragons murmured among themselves. This human was either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. "I need something from you, though," said. "Something to help me find the eggs once I'm inside the station." "What do you need?" asked. "A scale from a parent of one of the eggs. Dragon eggs have a connection to their parents. If I have a scale, I can use it to track the eggs. They will call to each other." Nodded slowly. She understood. Dragons were connected to their children in ways that went beyond simple biology. It was almost like magic, though it was really just very advanced science that looked like magic. Without hesitation, she reached up to her own chest. She gripped one of her scales, a large silver one, right over her heart. Then she pulled. The scale came free with a wet tearing sound. Blue blood, bright as the summer sky, welled up from the wound. It dripped onto the stone floor. The other dragons gasped. Removing a scale was very painful. It was not something done lightly. But did not even flinch. She held the bloody scale out to the human. "This is from me," she said. "3 of the eggs are mine, my children." Took the scale carefully. He held it like it was the most precious thing in the universe, because too it was. "I'll bring them back," he said. His voice was quiet but firm. "All 12 of them, I promise." "Why?" asked again. "Why do you care? You do not know us. We are not your people. Our children are not your children." Put the scale into a protective case and tucked it into his coat. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, sadder. "A long time ago, someone took something from me, someone I loved very much. I was too weak to stop them, too slow, too late." He closed his eyes briefly. "I swore that day that I would never let it happen to anyone else, not if I could help it." He walked toward the cave entrance. The blizzard was still raging outside. The cold was still deadly. "Children are precious," he said without looking back. "All children, human children, dragon children, it doesn't matter. Taking them is wrong. Hurting them is wrong. And anyone who does it deserves everything that happens to them." Grandmother Bora spoke up. Her ancient voice was gentle. "What will you do to the—" Stopped at the entrance. The wind whipped his coat and his hair. The cold reached for him with frozen fingers. "Something bad," he said simply. Then he walked out into the storm and disappeared. The dragons watched him go. This small, soft, seemingly fragile creature. He had no claws, no scales, no fire. He had nothing that should make him dangerous. And yet somehow, the dragons felt sorry for They had made a terrible mistake. They had taken children. And now a human was coming for them. The station floated in the darkness above 7. It was called the Harvest, and it was a terrible place. This was where they brought everything they stole. Eggs, creatures, sometimes even people. Everything had a price. Everything could be sold. Commodore was the commander of the station. He was an ugly creature, even by standards. His shell was cracked and stained. His many eyes were yellow and cruel. He had been a pirate and a slaver and a killer for over 60 years. Right now he was bored. "Anything happening?" he asked his second in command. "One small ship is requesting permission to dock," the officer replied. "A trader, species listed as human." His mandibles clicked in amusement. "Human, those primitive creatures, what does it want?" "It says it wants to buy shells, dragon eggshells. It's offering good money." "Really?" was surprised. Humans usually didn't have much money. They were a poor species from a poor planet. "Well, let it in. Maybe we'll sell it something. Or maybe," he laughed, a horrible clicking sound, "maybe we'll sell it." Human organs, he knew, could be transplanted into many different species. A healthy human could be worth quite a lot to the right buyer. The small ship landed in the docking bay. The guards watched with bored expressions as the human stepped out. They scanned him with their security devices. "One knife," the guard reported. "Small, primitive, made of simple metal." Watching through a security camera, laughed again. "That's it, not even a gun." "No, Commander, just the knife." "Pathetic creature, let it through." Walked into the station with his hands in his pockets. Guards watched him pass. They did not see him as a threat. He was too small, too soft, too weak. He was just a stupid human who had come to spend money. The station was a maze of metal hallways and locked doors. Aliens of many species walked past. Some were guards, some were prisoners, some were buyers looking for things to purchase. Asked a passing drone for directions to the biological merchandise section. The drone was happy to help. It led him through corridor after corridor, deeper and deeper into the station. Finally, they reached a large room filled with containers. Each container held something alive. Some held animals, some held plants, some held things that did not want to think about. And in the corner, in 12 special stasis containers, were the dragon eggs. Walked over to them slowly. The containers had clear tops. He could see the eggs inside. They were beautiful. Each one was about the size of a human child. Their shells were silver and blue and black, depending on which parent they came from. The monitors on the containers showed that all 12 eggs were alive. Their little hearts were beating slowly in stasis sleep. They were dreaming dragon dreams, dreams filled with cold and fear and the longing for their parents. Pulled out the scale that had given him. He held it against one of the containers. The scale began to glow softly. Inside the container, the egg glowed too. They recognized each other, mother and child, connected across space and time. "Hey there," said softly, "I'm gonna get you home." "How touching," said a voice behind him. Turned slowly. Commodore stood in the doorway with 6 armed guards. Their weapons were pointed directly at the human. "Did you really think you could steal from us, little creature?" asked. His yellow eyes glittered with cruel amusement. "Did you really think we were that stupid?" "No," said calmly. "I knew you were that stupid. I was counting on it." Laughed. Such brave words for something so small and weak. "You have no weapons, no armor, no help coming. You are alone, human." "Yeah," agreed. He started walking toward the "I am." The guards tensed. Their fingers tightened on their triggers. "Stop moving or we will kill you," commanded. Did not stop. He kept walking, slowly, calmly, like he was taking a nice walk in a park. I said stop. I heard you. Reached into his coat. The guards got ready to shoot, but all he pulled out was the small knife, the primitive, simple, useless knife. Laughed so hard his shell rattled. That is your weapon, a tiny piece of metal. It's enough. What happened next would be talked about among them for generations. They would tell it as a warning story, a story about what happens when you underestimate humans. Moved, but it was not normal movement. It was too fast, too precise, too perfect. One moment he was standing in front of the guards, the next moment he was among them. The knife found gaps in their armor, gaps that should not exist, gaps that were too small to hit, but somehow the human hit them, every single time. The first guard fell before anyone could even fire a weapon. The second fell half a second later. The third tried to run but did not get far. Screamed for backup. He grabbed his own weapon and fired at the human. The shot missed, was not where he had been. He was somewhere else, then somewhere else, then right in front of the Commodore. The knife was red with blood now. Humans look soft, said quietly. His dark eyes were completely calm. We have no claws, no shells, no venom. Every physical test says we are weak. Backed away, his many legs scrambling on the metal floor. But evolution on our planet was cruel, continued. It made us into something else, something that doesn't give up, something that doesn't stop, something that gets angry in ways the galaxy has never seen. Please, begged. I'll give you the eggs, I'll give you anything, just don't. You took children, said. You were going to kill them, grind their shells into jewelry. The knife rose. There's a word in my language for what I'm feeling right now. It's called spite. It means I don't care what happens to me, as long as something very bad happens to you. Screamed. 32 seconds after the fight started, it was over. Stood alone in a room full of silence. He cleaned his knife on his coat and walked back to the eggs. Right, he said to them, let's go home. He began pushing the containers toward the door. On his way out, he stopped at a control panel and typed in a few commands. Behind him, alarms started blaring. The station's orbit was decaying. Its shields were failing. Its life support was shutting down. Walked back to his ship, pushing 12 dragon eggs in front of him. No one tried to stop him. Everyone who might have stopped him was either dead or running for their lives. The small human ship flew away from the station just as it began to burn. Looked back through his window. The harvest, the terrible place where so many stolen lives had been sold, was falling into the atmosphere of 7. It would burn up completely. Nothing would survive. That's what you get, said softly. Then he turned his ship toward the frozen mountains, where a family was waiting. The pack saw the ship coming down through the storm and prepared to fight. They thought it might be the coming for revenge. They thought more enemies had arrived to take more of their family. 17 dragons spread their wings. 17 dragons showed their teeth. 17 dragons got ready to die protecting their home. But it was not a ship. It was small and simple and flew a little crookedly, like it was very tired. It landed gently in the snow outside the cave. The cargo door opened slowly. And there inside the ship were 12 stasis containers, 12 dragon eggs, all alive, all safe, all coming home. For a moment nobody moved. The dragons stared at the eggs. They could not believe what they were seeing, after so much pain, after so much grief, after losing all hope. Their children had come back. Then the moment broke, and everything was chaos and joy. Ran forward first. She pressed her face against the containers that held her eggs, her 3 bobbies. She could feel them inside, their little hearts beating, their little minds dreaming. They knew she was there. They could feel her too. The other parents rushed forward as well. They touched the containers. They sang to their eggs. They cried tears of happiness that steamed in the cold air. Grandmother Bora stood apart watching. Tears rolled down her ancient face. She had lived for 400 years. She had seen much death and much sorrow, but she had rarely seen this. She had rarely seen a miracle. Leaned against his ship, watching the reunion. He looked exhausted. His coat was torn in several places. There was blood on his hands, though none of it was his. Alpha finally stepped away from her eggs and walked toward the human. She was so much bigger than him. She could crush him with one foot. She could eat him in one bite. Instead, she bowed her head low. This was the greatest sign of respect a dragon could show. "You did it," she said. Her voice was shaking with emotion. "You brought them back." "Told you I would." "How?" she asked. "The station, it was a fortress. How did one small creature destroy it?" Shrugged, it made him wince. He was more hurt than he was showing. "Humans aren't small," he said. "You just can't see all of us yet." Did not understand. She tilted her head in confusion. Looked up at the sky. The storm was clearing. Stars were beginning to appear. Far above, a streak of fire crossed the darkness. That was the station burning up as it fell. "The galaxy thinks humans are primitive," said. "They think we're new and weak and stupid. They think we don't matter." He looked back at. "That's because we haven't shown them yet. We haven't built an empire. We haven't conquered anyone. We haven't made ourselves known." "Why not?" asked. "Because we're patient, we're watching, we're learning." A small smile crossed his tired face. "We're figuring out exactly what kind of species we want to be." "And what is that?" Looked at the eggs. He looked at the parents crying with joy. He looked at the old grandmother watching with tearful eyes. "The ones who help," he said simply. "The ones who show up when no one else will. The ones who care about what's right, not what's easy." He started walking back toward his ship. "Wait," called. "You cannot leave yet. You must stay. Let us feed you. Let us thank you properly. You saved our children. We owe you everything." Shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." "Then take treasure. We have gold. We have gems. We have things worth much money." "I don't want money." "Then what do you want?" Stopped at his ship's door. He turned around one more time. "Just do me one favor," he said. "When those hatchlings grow up, tell them the story. Tell them a human came for them." "Why?" asked. Smile grew wider. "Because the galaxy is going to learn our name eventually. Might as well start the legend somewhere beautiful." He climbed into his ship. The engine started with a quiet hum. The cargo door closed. The dragons watched as the small vessel lifted off. It rose through the clearing storm, past the falling remains of the burning station, up toward the stars. Stepped up next to. "What a strange creature," he said. "Yes," agreed, "strange and wonderful." "Do you think we will see him again?" Thought about this. She remembered the calm look in his eyes, the way he had walked into the storm without fear, the way he had promised to bring back their children and then actually did it. "I think," she said slowly, "that somewhere in the galaxy there will always be a human ready to help. That is who they are. That is what they do." The ship disappeared into the stars. 3 months later, the eggs hatched. 12 baby dragons came into the world, healthy and strong and beautiful. They had scales of silver and black and blue. They had eyes that glowed like fire. They had tiny wings that would one day grow large enough to cross oceans. The first story they ever heard was about a small creature who walked through killing cold. A creature who came from the stars when no one else would help. A creature who fought monsters and brought bobbies home to their families. The hatchlings loved this story. They asked to hear it again and again. "What was his name?" they would ask. Their parents would answer, "He was called." "What kind of creature was he?" "He was human." The hatchlings would think about this. Then one of them, usually the smallest one with silver scales just like her mother's, would ask the most important question. "Are all humans like him?" And Grandmother Bora, old and wise and still amazed by what she had seen, would answer, "We do not know yet, little one. Humans are new to the stars. They are still becoming who they will be. She would look up at the night sky where billions of stars shined in the darkness. But if there are more like him, then the galaxy should be very grateful. She would pause, and a small smile would cross her ancient face. And anyone who hurts children should be very, very afraid. The hatchlings would shiver with excitement. Then they would curl up with their families and fall asleep, dreaming of stars and heroes and the small, soft, impossibly stubborn creatures called humans. The dragons remembered. And someday, the whole galaxy would learn. There was a species out there that looked weak but wasn't. A species that didn't build empires or start wars. A species that quietly watched and learned and waited. And when someone hurt children, when someone took what wasn't theirs, when someone thought they were too powerful to be stopped, the humans would come. And they would remember.